Hi, I'm Willa. Life has a way of revealing its true colors when you least expect it. For years, I worked night shifts at my father's factory while juggling community college classes during the day. Dad always said it was about building character and learning the value of hard work. I believed him, like I believed everything else. Willa, I need you to cover the inventory count tonight, Dad said over our usual Tuesday dinner. The auditors are coming tomorrow. I pushed my mashed potatoes around my plate. But Dad, I have a midterm tomorrow. I told you last week I needed tonight to study. Education is important, but so is responsibility, he replied, not looking up from his phone. Your sister understood that balance. My sister Lena, always the perfect example, always the one who understood. Speaking of Lena, Mom interjected, she sent the most beautiful photos from her trip to Nice this weekend. The Mediterranean looks absolutely stunning, Dad beamed. That girl knows how to make the most of her opportunities. Her French is getting better, too. That university program was worth every penny. University program? I set my fork down. I thought she was doing an internship at that fashion house. Mom and Dad exchanged glances. Well, yes, Mom said carefully. But your father also enrolled her in the Sorbonne. It's a wonderful opportunity. The room suddenly felt too small. You're paying for her education in Paris? While I'm working nights at your factory and taking classes at community college? It's different, Willa, Dad said, his tone hardening. Lena has always shown exceptional promise in her field. This is an investment in her future. And what about my future? My voice cracked. What about the graphic design portfolio I've been building for 3 years? The one you said wasn't practical enough to justify art school? That's enough. Dad stood up. We can discuss this when you're being reasonable. The factory needs you tonight. Be there at 10. After dinner, I called my best friend Morgan. I can't believe this. I paced around my bedroom. All this time, I thought they couldn't afford to send me to art school, but they're bankrolling Lena's entire life in Paris? The apartment, the clothes, and now university? That's seriously messed up, Will, Morgan said. Have you ever directly asked about the finances? Dad always shut down those conversations, said the family business was struggling, and we all needed to make sacrifices. All except Lena, apparently. Exactly. I sat heavily on my bed. And get this. I found their tax returns in Dad's office last month when I was looking for some old invoices. The business made record profits last year. Wait, what? Morgan's voice rose. So he straight up lied to you? I didn't think much of it then. Figured maybe he was reinvesting in the company or something. But now you know where that money's going, Morgan finished. To fund your sister's Instagram-perfect Parisian dream life? My phone buzzed with a text. It was Uncle James, Dad's brother and co-owner of the factory. Hey, are you coming in tonight? Your dad said you might be reluctant. I texted back. On my way. I have to go, I told Morgan. Factory calls? This isn't right, Willa. You know that, right? I stared at the pile of textbooks on my desk, at the half-finished graphic design projects on my laptop. Yeah, I'm starting to see that very clearly. At the factory, Uncle James was waiting in the break room. His expression was unusually serious. You look like you've had a rough night already, he said, handing me a coffee. Dad and I had a disagreement, I replied vaguely. About Lena's tuition payment? He asked, surprising me. I saw the transfer authorization today. I nearly dropped my coffee. You know about that? Uncle James sighed heavily and leaned against the vending machine. Sit down, Willa. There's something you need to know about the family finances and your father's selective generosity. What exactly do you mean by selective generosity? I asked Uncle James, the fluorescent lights of the break room buzzing above us. He ran a hand through his graying hair. Your father and I have different philosophies about family. He believes in investing in sure things. And I'm not a sure thing, I said flatly. That's his perspective, not mine. Uncle James pulled out his phone. Look at these numbers. This is what the factory has paid you over the past 3 years. I studied the screen. This doesn't look right. I've never made this much. Exactly. Your father has been skimming from your paychecks. Officially, you're paid fair market rate. In reality, he deposits only 2/3 of your earnings into your account. The rest goes into what he calls the Family Future Fund. My stomach dropped. Which apparently only funds Lena's future. I confronted him about it last month. He said you agreed to contribute to Lena's education. That's a lie. I stood up, knocking my chair backward. I never agreed to any such thing. I believed as much. Uncle James's expression darkened. There's more. The factory has a scholarship program for employees pursuing higher education. You've applied 3 times. And been rejected 3 times. I finished. Dad said the committee didn't think my grades were competitive enough. There is no committee, Willa. Your father reviews those applications personally. The betrayal cut deep. All those nights working while studying, the exhaustion, the sacrificed social life, all because my father had decided my dreams weren't worth investing in. The next day, I met with Morgan and her mother, Diana, who worked as a labor attorney. This is wage theft, Diana said after reviewing the documents Uncle James had provided. And likely tax fraud as well. Your father reported paying you one amount, but actually gave you less. I can't believe he would do this, I said, still processing the revelation. People rationalize all sorts of behavior when it comes to money, Diana replied, especially when it's wrapped up in family dynamics. So what can Willa do about it? Morgan asked. You have options, Diana explained. You could file a formal complaint with the labor board, possibly pursue civil action, or I could confront him directly, I finished. With evidence. Diana nodded cautiously. That's also an option, though not always the safest one emotionally. I need to understand why, I said, and I need him to face what he's done. Later that afternoon, I visited my cousin Ellie, who worked in the factory's accounting department. I need your help, I told her, closing her office door behind me. This sounds serious, she replied, looking up from her computer. It is. I need access to the financial records for the Family Education Fund. Ellie's eyes widened. That's not something I'm supposed to share. Uncle James already confirmed it exists, and that Dad's been diverting money from my paychecks into it without my consent. Ellie's surprise morphed into anger. That's why you've been working so many hours? To fund Lena's expenses? Apparently. She turned to her computer. That's not right, Willa. Not by any measure. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Here, the account was opened 5 years ago. Initial funding came from... Oh. What? From the sale of your grandmother's house. The one she left specifically to you and Lena, equally in her will? I felt like I'd been punched. I never saw a penny from that sale. Dad said the house was underwater on the mortgage and there was nothing left after the sale. That's not what these records show, Ellie said quietly. There was a substantial amount. Your half should have been almost $100,000. And instead, it all went to Lena. The pieces were falling into place. I need copies of everything, Ellie. Every transaction, every transfer. What are you going to do? She asked, already printing documents. I'm going to make this right, I replied, a plan forming. And I'm going to make sure he never does this to anyone else again. As I left, my phone buzzed with a text from Lena. Surprise! Coming home next weekend for a visit. Can't wait to see you. Perfect timing. Sunday dinner. The table was set with the good china. Lena was home. Mom had prepared all her favorites, and Dad had opened his special occasion wine. I'd spent the past 3 days organizing evidence, consulting with Diana, and steeling myself for this moment. To my brilliant daughters, Dad raised his glass. One building her international career and the other keeping our family business running smoothly. The dismissive tone in his voice when referring to my contribution was the final push I needed. Actually, I said, setting down my untouched wine, I'd like to talk about the family business and about our family finances. Dad's smile faltered. This isn't the time, Willa. I think it's exactly the time, I countered, pulling out a folder. Well, everyone's here to discuss where the money has been going. What's going on? Lena asked, looking between us. Your sister is being dramatic, Dad said dismissively. As usual. Am I being dramatic about this? I slid a document across the table, a record of my actual pay versus what I'd received. Or this? Another document, the education fund statements showing my stolen inheritance. Or perhaps this? The rejected scholarship applications with Dad's personal notes in the margins. Willa's design career isn't worth the investment. Mom gasped. Richard, what is this? Business decisions, he said tersely, which are none of your concern. It became my concern when you stole from me, I said evenly. When you took my inheritance, skimmed from my paychecks, and rejected my scholarship applications, all to fund Lena's life in Paris. Lena's face had gone white. Dad, is this true? You told me Willa didn't want to go to college yet, that she preferred working at the factory. I was protecting the family assets, Dad insisted, his voice rising. Investing in the future with the highest return? I'm not a stock portfolio, I shot back. I'm your daughter, the one who's been working night shifts in your factory since high school while trying to pursue my own education. A waste of potential, he scoffed. Drawing pictures while Lena is making international business connections? Those pictures won me a design competition last year. The prize was a scholarship to the Design Institute, which I couldn't accept because I was working in your factory. My voice cracked with emotion. I had no idea, Mom whispered, tears in her eyes. None of you had any idea because Dad made sure of it, I continued. He manipulated all of us, controlled the narrative, and decided whose dreams were worth supporting. You ungrateful? Dad began, standing up. Careful, Uncle James warned from the doorway. I hadn't heard him arrive. Think very carefully about what you say next, Richard. Dad's face contorted with anger. You did this. You helped her dig up all this ancient history. I helped her uncover the truth, Uncle James corrected. Something you should have done years ago. This is family business, Dad shouted. It's also legal business, I replied calmly. Diana Peters, you know, Morgan's mom? She says what you've done constitutes wage theft and fraud, not to mention the misappropriation of my inheritance. Dad's face paled. You wouldn't dare bring lawyers into this. I already have, I said. The paperwork has been filed. This isn't just about the money anymore, Dad. It's about the lies. The years of making me feel like my dreams weren't valuable while putting Lena on a pedestal. I was trying to protect you, he insisted, his tone shifting to pleading. The design industry is unstable. I wanted security for you. No, I shook my head. You wanted control, and you used money to maintain it. Willa, please. He reached for my hand. We can work this out as a family. I'll make it up to you. I pulled away. It's too late for that. The labor board investigation starts tomorrow. Uncle James and I are establishing a proper employee scholarship fund with transparent administration. And I'll be expecting full restitution of my stolen wages and inheritance. You'll destroy everything I've built, Dad shouted, slamming his fist on the table hard enough to make the dishes jump. All because you couldn't accept that your sister deserved more support. A sudden silence fell over the room. Even Dad seemed shocked by what he'd admitted. And there it is, I said quietly. The truth at last. 3 months after the confrontation, I sat in the university cafe sketching on my tablet. The investigation had concluded swiftly. Dad's financial misconduct was too blatant to deny. Uncle James had bought out Dad's share of the factory, instituting transparent management practices and a legitimate employee scholarship program. Is this seat taken? Lena asked, standing beside my table looking less polished than her usual Parisian self. It's all yours, I replied, gesturing to the empty chair. Your designs look amazing, she said, eyeing my tablet. The program here must be good for you. It is. Everything I hoped for. An awkward silence stretched between us until she finally spoke. I had no idea what Dad was doing, Willa. I swear. I know, I said simply. The investigation had revealed Lena as another pawn in Dad's manipulations. albeit a more privileged one. He calls me every day, she said, fidgeting with her coffee cup, begging me to help him rebuild the family, says he's changed. And what do you tell him? That actions have consequences. Her voice was firmer than I'd ever heard it, and that I'm learning to make my own way now, like my sister did. My phone buzzed. Another text from Dad that I wouldn't answer. After everything, he still believed he could manipulate his way back into my life. Morgan's meeting me here to help prepare for my portfolio review, I said. 3 design firms are sending representatives. That's amazing, Lena said, standing to leave. You deserve this, Willa. You always did. After she left, I checked my email. The final restitution payment had processed. My grandmother's inheritance was restored with interest. Enough to finish my education and start fresh wherever I chose. Morgan arrived, setting her books on the table. Was that Lena I saw leaving? Yeah, she's figuring things out. And your dad? Still trying to rewrite history, I said, showing her his latest message. Please call me. We're family. I've changed. Are you going to respond? Morgan asked. I blocked his number, again. Some relationships aren't worth rebuilding. The greatest revenge wasn't watching my father lose his business or his family. It was reclaiming my potential and refusing to let his narrow vision define my worth. That victory would last far longer than any satisfaction from his downfall. Ready to prepare for that interview? I asked Morgan, closing my sketchbook and moving forward with my life, on my own terms.